Hi, fifth graders. Okay, today this video lesson will be on lesson 79, which is finding equivalent fractions by multiplying by 1. You can find it on page 511 of your textbook. So we're going to start out with a little bit of review of what you already know. We have talked before about how if a fraction has the same numerator and the same denominator, it is equal to 1. So 1 over 1, 2 over 2, 3 over 3, 10 over 10, 100 over 100. Any number or any fraction with the same numerator and denominator are all equal to 1. That's going to help us today as we talk about equivalent fractions. So first of all, we've talked a little bit about it, but let's get a definition down. What is an equivalent fraction? It's a different name for the same fraction. So if fractions are equivalent, that means they are the same. So different fractions can be equal. So what we're going to be learning today is how to take a fraction, multiply it by a fraction like one of these to get a new fraction that is equal to the first fraction. And we do that by multiplying a number by a different fraction equal to 1. So let's look at some examples of this. If we have the fraction 1/2 and we want to find an equivalent fraction, we can multiply 1/2 times any one of these types of fractions to get an equivalent fraction. So one that is equal to 1/2. So if we have 1/2 and we multiply it by 2 over 2, which is equal to 1, we will get 2/4, because 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4. We'll get 2/4. And 1/2 is the same as 2/4, but they look different. Remember, an equivalent fraction means it's a different name for the same fraction. So 1/2 and 2/4, although they're different, they are the same. So we can do that for all of them. We can go back to 1/2 times 3 over 3, and that's 3/6. 1/2 is the same as 3/6. They're just called something different. We can do the same thing. 1/2 times 4 over 4 is 4/8. 1/2 times 5 over 5 is 5/10. All of these are fractions that are equal to 1/2 but are named differently. So let's look at some examples of this. Our first example 1, which you can follow along in your textbook, says, what name for 1 should 3/4 be multiplied by to make 6/8? So basically what that question is asking is, alright, you have to start with 3/4, and what name for 1, so what fraction equal to 1 needs to be multiplied by 3/4 to equal 6/8. So if we look at that, it says 3/4 times n over n equals 6/8. Since n over n, since it's using the same variable, that means it's the same number. And it has to be like that because it has to equal 1. So we can look at our original and our ending fraction. We can say 3 times what is 6? Well, I know that 3 times 2 is 6, and 4 times 2 is 8, so that means n over n is equal to 2 over 2. So that means we have to multiply it by 3/4 by 2 over 2 in order for it to get to be 6 over 8. Now remember, 3/4 and 6/8 are the same, or they're equivalent fractions even though they look different. Because we multiplied it by a fraction that has the same numerator and denominator, which is equal to 1, it's the same thing as multiplying 3/4 times 1. Except for you're going to get a different fraction. Remember, you can pause at any time to write this down in your notes, or you can go back and re-listen to parts. Let's move on to example 2. Example 2 says to write a fraction equal to 2/3 that has a denominator of 12. So in this case, we set it up. Here's the original. 2/3 is equal to some numerator with a denominator of 12. So if we write this out, go 2/3 is equal to, 2/3 times some number is equal to something over 12. Okay, so now we have to find what fraction this is. So we use what we know. We already know that we're supposed to go get a denominator of 12. So we need to figure out what 3 times something is equal to 12. We can't figure out this one because we don't know what our ending is supposed to be. So we're going to have to use what we do know to figure out what we don't. So 3 times 4 is equal to 12. And what you do to the bottom, you do to the top in equivalent. So that must mean we do 2 times 4. In this case, it would mean that's equal to 8. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. So our fraction is going to be 4/4, and our ending is going to be 8/12. Let's move on to example 3. Example 3 has a couple parts to it, so make sure you're following along with this. Example 3 says to write a fraction equal to 1/3 that has a denominator of 12. And then there's more to the question. Then write a fraction equal to 1/4 that has a denominator of 12. What is the sum of the two fractions you made? So there's 3 parts to this. First, you have to find out the missing numerator for this fraction and the missing numerator for this fraction. Then when you come up with these 2 ending fractions, you have to add them together. So let's figure this out. Let's start with 1. 1/3 times something over something is equal to something over 12. So 3 times what is 12? I know that that's 4. That means when I do the bottom, I do the top. So 1 times 4 is equal to 4. And then I can do my second part, which is 1/4 is equal to, times something over something is equal to something over 12. 4 times what is 12? Well, that's 3. And when I do the bottom, I do the top, so it equals 1. 1 times 3 is 3. So my 2 fractions are 4/12 and 3/12. And the question says that after I'm done finding my new fractions, I have to add these. So 4/12 plus 3/12 is equal to 7/12. So there is my answer. Okay, now I'm going to move on to example 4. Example 4 says, write 3/4 as a fraction with a denominator of 100. Then write the new fraction as a percent. Okay. So in this case, we have 2 parts again. Well, I'm sorry, 2 parts. For the last one, we had 3 parts. 3/4 times something equals something over 100. So let's write this out. 3/4 times some fraction is equal to something over 100. So we need to find out what this is. So we use what we know. We know we have 2 denominators. So 4 times what is 100? Well, that will be 25. 4 quarters in a dollar. And what we do to the bottom, we do to the top to make it equivalent. Because 25 over 25 is equal to 1. 3 times 25 is equal to 75. So our fraction is going to be 75 out of 100. But we aren't finished yet because the second part of the question says to write the new fraction as a percent. 75 out of 100, we learned, if it's hundredths, too, Well, obviously, if that's out of 100%, this is just 75%. If you would like to do it the way that we learned the other day, we could do it like this. 75 over 100 would be 75 hundredths. And to make it into a percent, move it over 2 places to the right, which equals our 75%. We're going to end with a couple quick lesson practices. We have 3/4 times something over something equals 9/12. In this case, we can start at the top or the bottom because we know both sides. 3 times what is 9? That's 3, which means we'll have the bottom. Do a check. 4 times 3 is 12. So 3/3 would be it. I'm going to kind of fly through these because I don't want to run out of, or we might run out of video time. 2/3 times something equals 4/6. 2 times what is 4? That would be 2 over 2 then. Let's check it. 3 times 2 is 6. So 2/2 would be the fraction that is equal to 1 that we need to make these equivalent. Again, remember, these are equivalent. These are equivalent. As long as you're multiplying by 1. Okay, 1/3 times something equals 4/12. 1 times what is 4? Well, that would definitely be 4, which means the bottom is 4, so it equals 1. 3 times 4 is 12. Good. Remember, feel free to pause at any time. And our final practices that we're going to do today. 1/4 equals something over 25 over 100. 1 times what is 25? 25 over 25. Let's check. 4 times 25 is 100. Yep, that's good, because that is equal to 1. Okay, well, this one's a little different. 1/3 is equal to something over 9. So we have to go back to writing it out. That means 1/3 times some fraction is equal to some fraction, or some number over 9. So we use what we know. We know both denominators. So 3 times 3 is equal to 9. What we do the bottom, we do the top. 1 times 3 is 3. So 1/3 is equivalent to 3/9. So that's what we would fill in to our yellow box. Okay. Oop. There we go. Alright, same thing. 2/3 is equal to something over 15. Let's write it out. 2/3 times something over something is equal to something over 15. Okay, so we have denominator and denominator. 3 times what is 15? That would be 5. When we do the bottom, we do the top. 2 times 5 is 10. We checked it, so 2/3 is equal to 10 over 15. Therefore, 10 is our missing. And finally, 3/5 is equal to something over 10. So we need to write it out. 3/5 times something over something is equal to something over 10. We know our denominators. 5 times what is 10? That'd be 2. Then the top would be 2. 2 halves equals 1. 3 times 2 is 6. So 3/5 is equal to 6/10. Remember, again, you can feel free to rewind, go back, whatever you need to do. I will be around on Friday for any extra questions that you might have. Do your best. I'm proud of you. Great job, 5th graders.